In the interest of time, and for those that have joined, I'm appreciative. So I do hope that other folks will join us. I know that it can be, depending on where you're zooming in from, or at the end of the day, or still like in the thick of it. So I know that may mean that folks may join in a little bit. I have some slides to share with those on the call, and then I want to open it up for discussion, right? For employers to talk to each other, right? With some facilitated questions, but really for you to learn and hear what's going on other campuses. What are the worries, concerns? What are you putting in place? What do you want some creativity around? What do you need some energy towards as it relates to your search? Or maybe you're coming into this space saying, I'm not there yet, but I want to know more. So we'll go through some of that, and depending on the audience, if you're joining live or maybe watching this, we'll see where that conversation takes us. So my name is Amanda Dickinson-Byrne, and I am coming to you from Georgetown University. I work as an associate director of student outreach and support, but sort of more importantly for this hour, I am so lucky to work on the TPE Planning Committee for this year, and I'm working directly with employers, which is why I am coming to you, and I'll be a main point of contact for employers moving forward. So with that, welcome to the session. I'd love for folks, if you feel comfortable, because I can't see the chat, I'd love if folks felt comfortable to unmute themselves and just let me know if you participated in TPE virtual last year, TPE in person, just a quick frame of who's in the space and levels of awareness. That'd be super helpful for me to know before I get started.
Good afternoon. My name is Jami McKinnon. I participated in TPE virtually and in person previously, both as employers.
Thanks, Janae.
Hi, I'm Sally from University of Southern California. We did not participate in virtual TPE last year, but we have participated in person. So I look forward to hearing more about the virtual side of things and how to best prepare.
Yeah, so I really appreciate it. This will be a really broad overview. So if there are specific questions, Sally, let's get in there. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot more offerings and engagements for employers as we get closer to not only registration opening, but the event. So thanks so much to both of you. I appreciate it. All right, let's get started. Oh. Here we go. All right. So this is me, and I want to give a shout out to the entire committee, but specifically Dr. Tim, who has been such an important part of what it means to support employers. He was the person who was anchored in this role last year as part of the committee and has been really helpful to me as I frame what it means to support employers for the upcoming year. So he is not on the call, but I just want to shout him out during this time. And again, let you know that I am the one who's going to be working with employers, but he's giving me such great advice and good guidance. So thanks to Tim. With that, here is the TPE Planning Committee. Here are the folks that are supporting employers, candidates, volunteers, and the entirety of the TPE process. So I want to shout out Kirby Gibson, who is our TPE chair, fearless leader, and the rest of the committee here. So in case you know folks or have been involved previously, want to put their names out there as folks who are doing really good work to prepare for TPE virtual. So here we are, save the date. Maybe this is in your calendar. Maybe you're coming in and saying, I have no idea when this is. March 14th and 17th. Here we are. It's Monday through Thursday. So going back to what is seen as a more traditional time for TPE, last year as a frame, it was held much earlier. So just as a comparison, we're back to being closer to NASPA, even though it is a virtual event. NASPA is the 20th through the 23rd, so back to that more traditional time frame for TPE, but it's the 14th through the 17th, so you can save that date if you don't have that already in your calendar. So just a quick overview of some employer stats, right? I have worked with employers now for a couple months. And people are really curious about the experience of last year and what it was like virtually. So we had about 900 candidates participate, over 150 employers who went through over 3,000 virtual interviews, right? Just to frame how big was the event? What did it actually feel and look like? Here are some stats to hopefully ground and frame that experience if you didn't go through it, right? We have one who did and one who didn't on the call last year. And we had about 26 workshops and educational sessions, right? For candidates, for employers, things to think about, things to consider, orientation sessions, roundtables, all of those kinds of things. And so this is really what last year looked like in a quick overview as it relates to some stats. And over 100 candidate coaching sessions. So we do expect that this will be replicated in the upcoming session and event, that candidates will get some direct coaching from volunteers, specifically employers. So hoping that's something that all the folks that are not necessarily participating in as employers can volunteer and can put their energy and expertise towards helping some candidates in the moment. I was involved in the candidate coaching last year and found it to be really, really valuable to be right there with a candidate as they had just had an interview or were about to go into an interview and just had some really specific questions. All right, so dates and rates, here we are. TPE registration aiming for Monday, November 1st. These are the rates that are associated with the virtual event, $250 for employers and $25 for candidates. If folks have questions or more specific things as we go through, I just ask for them to be held and we'll get to them at the end of the session. But in case you're wondering how much is it going to be and when will registration open, it is here. Registration doesn't close, and so you don't have to register right away, but obviously folks on this call know preparing for a search or multiple search processes takes a long time, and you're probably already thinking about, well, when do I need to register? When do I need to start to get these things in place? When do I want my job posted? When are candidates going to start to be viewing it? All those kinds of things. So that's going to give you some good ideas to figure out, okay, so in November, I want to think about registering specifically. So TPE registration and creating an employer account. So this may be really new for folks on the call or old hat. It just depends on your level of comfortability and familiarity with the process. So if you are registering and you're feeling like you're ready to do that, here's what a virtual employer registration package will get you, right? It gets you an event job post credit. And that allows you to apply to a job posting and have it posted on TPE. It gets you a personal interview schedule, access to all TPE virtual candidates, and a designated employer point of contact with unlimited team members. And again, shouting out that access to employer resources, educational sessions, right? Concierge hours, one-on-one questions. I need help navigating this specific thing as it relates to the TPE virtual event. That's going to get you the ability to be connected to not only myself, but to other members who are supporting the TPE virtual event. So that's what a registration package will get you. You have to first create an employer account before you do that. But an employer account helps you, of course, you post job, gets you to then register, and lets you search for candidates. So as you tinker around on the TPE employer website, whether again, if you've registered previously or you've never done it before, I would suggest just getting your bearings on the website and read and see what comes up as terms of questions, but there's a lot of good information on the website as it relates to how do I register? What does that really mean? What happens once I register? Okay. So some differences in the job postings. A lot of folks, if you were a candidate or if you're an employer or if you've been both, like I'm sure many of us on the call have been, you start to be unsure about, well, can candidates see my posting, or if I'm not attending the virtual event, what does that mean, or is it visible? So you get to decide who you want to have see your job posting. So an online job post, all candidates can apply to, right? It's not associated with the TPE event at all. TPE event job post, right? People that are going virtually, traveling virtually to TPE and saying, I'm registered, I'm a candidate. These are the jobs that I'm specifically looking for, right? And then you can choose between a standard event post or a premium event post, right? And that really depends on your recruitment needs. Do you want access to registered candidates only, or do you want that broader pool plus non-registered candidates, anyone who's in a job search process right now? And so you have to think about what works best for you, what you're looking for as it relates to, recruitment, where else you may be posting the position outside of TPE, what's going to get you the most candidates, or the subset of candidates that you're really looking for, depending on functional area and needs of your recruitment team. Okay, so gone through some dates and rates, a little bit of the job posting differences. So some suggested November to-dos, right? Think about registering, right? Get on the website, talk with your recruitment team, or if you're heading that recruitment team, start to figure out what we're doing and if we want to register in November. And I think that's a good idea to get you set in motion. You want to think about posting your job descriptions, right? And how to apply, right? What do they actually have to do? Where is the link to the HR website? What do candidates have to do? Aside from just seeing this job posting, is there a hyperlink that they can click on and take them to your HR website or your departmental website with which they're going to actually being applied, right? Make that really seamless for folks. And of course, this third bullet, right? And that's what I want folks to talk about during our time together. How do you actually want to conduct your search, right? What are the barriers? What are the things that you're excited about? What are the unknowns? Aside from registering and getting that job posting up, that's a lot of logistics, really key things to do. But how do you want to conduct your search? How is it different now, or is it? Right? As we are still in the pandemic, as folks are working maybe singularly in person or hybrid, all of those things, right? And then determining your recruitment team. Maybe you have that already in place, but really thinking critically about who you want to be a part of your recruitment team and why, right? Really diversifying that recruitment team. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. In a couple slides. And then of course, right, lots of suggested November to-dos, and these can certainly be fluid, but how do you want to conduct your search, that recruitment team, and then designing your interview schedule format, right? Some employers do first and second rounds during TPE, right? And oftentimes that can be seen as sort of a traditional way in which to conduct a search as an employer. First rounds, first day or two, 30-minute screening interviews. Folks then oftentimes use the next 2 days to do longer final or second round interviews with candidates, right? And if you're a candidate, you know that process well if you went through that virtually or in person. Some schools elect to do screening interviews depending on capacity, needs, how many positions you're actually posting for. Some folks do those screening first round interviews ahead of time, so they have more fluidity, more flexibility. When they get to 4 days of TPE virtual, they can really spread it out to do those second rounds. They can have more fluid conversations with candidates, and it allows them to be less rigid. And they're going in knowing that they have a very different select pool of people that they've already started to have communication with. So again, it's going to depend on many different things, but so curious to see, again, on this sub-bullet, where employers are thinking right now of using first and second rounds during TPE virtual, or if there are folks that are coming into the space and thinking about doing some initial outreach ahead of time. That doesn't work for every employer, but it's something that some folks have done, and we assume will continue. Okay, so building your recruitment team, and this picture is from Austin 2020. Gosh, it feels like a long time ago, but wanted to keep that in there. There is some such good work and such good folks that were involved in that process and that are currently on the TPE Planning Committee. So I see that picture and feel really good about where we're continuing to go and to look at our past at this point a couple of years ago. So that's a little bit more for me and those committee members who did such good work in 2020. So building your recruitment team. Of course, you know this, right? The mix of new and returning staff members, perspectives, right? A cross-section of departmental partners and collaborators. Oftentimes, within a functional area, people will say, well, I want the recruitment team to be, you know, a diverse subset of people within the department, new, you know, emerging professionals, senior leadership, but I don't necessarily go outside. I don't invite other collaborators. I don't invite other representatives of the university community, students, staff, and faculty. And is that going to feel like something that would be comfortable for you to do, particularly during TPE virtual? But we do know that many folks have members of other offices on their recruitment team pretty regularly. And it's just going to depend on if that makes sense for you and your recruitment team. But obviously, those diverse perspectives. And we're hoping, it being a virtual event, maybe bringing in those diverse perspectives from, you know, key constituents and folks in other campus partner offices or students. Maybe the virtual event makes it a little bit easier, right? You're not traveling, stating the obvious, right? The folks that are in those other offices are not necessarily having to be with you. Maybe they're working from home or you're in a shared campus center and they can hop on for some of those calls and really be present. And not only for you as an employer, but for candidates to start to see and meet other people outside of your office. Something to consider if that's not on top of mind right now. And then of course, the specific duties and roles of the team. So much of the work comes in there, right? What are you looking for as it relates to your recruitment team and what are they going to be asked to do specifically as it relates to the virtual event, right? Some of the things I've heard from employers last year for the virtual event was that it was pretty seamless. They enjoyed it. They enjoyed the fluidity, right, of being able to not have to travel and all of those kinds of things, right? Do things on a little bit on their own time to an extent while taking candidates, you know, time zone into consideration. On the flip side, though, lots of really good positive feedback, right, from the TPE virtual event last year. Flip side, I would say, is some employers said it was actually really hard for me to communicate to other campus partners, students, the people I supervise or the people that supervise, you know, me, that I'm actually in interviews, right? The protection of time. And we all know this as so key, but when you're not in a different location geographically, you're actually still in your office. And even if you have everything on your calendar and everything on your door, really making sure that the people know, you know, what it means to interrupt you during this time if you are in office and also from home, right? Can't always control the pets and the children and the other things in our home environments, but that's something to really consider. Is there a specific role and duty for the folks to make sure that they can really communicate that these expectations are that they are not able to multitask, right, during these interviews, or that a door knock could be seen as okay, right, but it could really be difficult unless it's a critical situation or an emergency. Employers and candidates can feel more distracted potentially, which is different, right, than being in person, and just something to consider. Okay, and then what are candidates looking for? Lots of stuff here. I'm going to go to the bottom of the slide and work our way up, and then I promise the slides are almost over, and then hoping folks can talk to each other. So for me, I think about ease of institutional and departmental information, right? What does that mean? We've included some links here. And hopefully on your current websites, you have this, right? Really easy for candidates to click on the link and see what are the benefits of working in that office, actual benefits of working in the office, right? If you're able to be transparent about professional development funds or opportunities or former opportunities that you've offered, ways in which, their healthcare is front and center, options for certain things as it relates to benefits, and what it means to work on the team with maybe some visuals, pictures, a quick video, sometimes having to really hunt around for that information as a candidate, regardless of level, right? Regardless if you're coming straight out of a student affairs or higher education program, or if you're a more seasoned professional. I think it speaks volumes when you can go on a website and a department has taken the time to put front and center the benefits and what it means to work for the departments. So I really like some of these that I've listed here. Won't click on them now, but happy to do so later. Right, different professional development opportunities. Candidates are looking for that now. Budget freezes, right? People are having a hard time spending because there's been restrictions. Maybe that's still the case in your campus, maybe it's not. But I think for most of us, we understand that regardless of kind and type of institution that we're at, all of us have had a really critical review of budgets, and it's been difficult, right, to be able to justify or feel as though you have the same amount of money or the same opportunity, knowing that travel is still quite restricted for many of us, and so many of the conferences and opportunities that we relied upon, while diverse in their offerings and are being offered virtually, sometimes travel is not going to be able to be afforded in ways that it used to be. Okay, candidates, right? Looking for obviously location, student experiences, COVID-19 flexible and adaptable work environments. We know this, right? We know this because we're in it, and we know that folks that are coming into new environments are really, really curious. Can't overstate that. And I'm sure folks have hired people recently and say, I know this, we've just gone through this with our most recent candidate hires, or we went through this in the summer, but they want transparency. They want to know that there's some flexibility and adaptability as it relates to work environments. And how candid and transparent can you be, right? I spoke to one employer that said, we put a really quick video together that answered a lot of these questions, because we found so often in first rounds, whether it was part of TPE virtual, or not, that of course people had so many questions, really good nuanced questions, and we were spending so much time answering them that we didn't get to any of the more specific, nuanced and affirming things about our institution. We were so focused on COVID, and we need to be, and that's valuable. But we put this video together to be proactive, right? To say, here's what we're doing, here's some questions. What other questions do you have? So what are the ways in which you can get in front of the candidates or before you're answering those same questions over and over and over again, which are key, right? And to not be fatigued by those questions. Candidates are looking for more than a departmental DEI statement, right? What are the ways in which your department has been visible, present? What are the ways in which it is showing up as it relates to your commitment to racial justice, to supporting students of color, to showing up for students from marginalized backgrounds, staff from marginalized backgrounds? What does that look like on your website? What does that look like when you're talking to candidates? I think they certainly want that. Coming out of the past year and a half, and that's always been the case as well, right? We can hold both truths in that candidates are going to ask very specific questions, but also that has been the case generally, right, in higher ed. So we know that. What does it mean to retain me as an employee? What are the things that are being put in to keep me here? And then the second bullet from the top for me, importance of self-care, but we know it's not enough, right? And I would love to employers have a really honest conversation about, everyone's asked about self-care. What are you doing for yourself? Are you taking your days off? Are you leaving early? Flexible work environments. And those matter, right? But what else is being done, has been done for you as a current employee, but also an employer? What are the policies and systems that have been put in place already that you can point to for candidates, versus saying, well, this is kind of how it's worked. And you may say that's not the case, and we have not been able to institutionalize self-care, or we haven't been able to institutionalize ways in which we value, our employees and from a holistic lens. But I think candidates are really looking for that. I know that's the case. I know we all are. And I think there's really good work being done to institutionalize what it means to really pay attention to the health and wellness, the emotional weight, the labor that this work carries, right? And of course, transparency from the process. We know this. Candidates are not wanting, to be quote unquote ghosted. And employers don't want that from candidates either. We tell that to candidates, right? Get in front of an employer, be proactive with your communication. If you have questions, if you want to know where they are in a process, ask them. You do have that leverage, you have that permission, please. But folks are looking for transparency, right? As much as you can. We know that. And then of course, what do you want as an employer, right? As you build your team, what are you looking for? All these things and more, right? So curious about this last bullet for the folks on the call. What do you want? What are you looking for after the past year and a half of being in these environments? What are you looking for in new teammates? And how has it changed, right? If at all, through the pandemic. Okay, some quick review. We're going to wrap up. So we know this, HR is going to dictate the application process, but you are the ones that shape the interview experience. You shape the first impressions of your institution, your team, your department, the student experience, right? You're an extension and part of that for candidates. So that's what I would want as the anchor for all of you, is to think about shaping that interview experience. Some things to potentially think about, right? What do you want to stop? What do you want to start? What do you want to continue? What do you have the capacity to do right now? Are you going into the search process the same way that you did last year and the year before and the year before that, or not at all? Some folks are saying we're throwing out the old ways out because this is a new era and a new age of higher ed, and we can't do the same things as it relates to interviewing and going through these search processes. Or folks are saying we can, it's worked, we're making small tweaks, and we're paying close attention to the ways in which the environment has changed and the landscape of higher ed has changed. So thinking about going through your position descriptions, right? Reviewing for bias, working with your HR team or the leadership in your department or your colleagues, right? To really critically look at what's in your position description, right? So you're gonna start that or continue it, right? Thinking about those scoring and application screening rubrics with a critical eye. Is it working? Did it work last year? Was it good enough? What did it get you? So do you want to stop that and revise it? Do you want to continue it? Do you want to start one, right? Sometimes that creating something fresh can be really invigorating. Other times people say, no, it's worked really well. And that's a standard that is really important for us to carry through as we go through our interviews. Interview format, on campus or virtual final process, and then of course the onboarding experiences. So lots to think about, right, in the next couple months, but want to give some food for thought as you start to ground what it means to begin that process. Candidate communication plan, right? Things to start to, again, think about. How are you marketing your roles, right? Are you just putting it on the TBE website knowing that you're going to be pulling from mostly TBE candidates? Are you looking for all job seekers, right? Depending on what kind of job posting you have. Where else are you posting? Obviously on your institutional website. Is it on higher ed? Is it on certain Facebook groups? But creating a strong marketing plan for not only the roles, right? But what the roles entail. It's more than just the post. Who are the narrators that are really strong in your department? Is it you? Is it other, entry level or emerging staff who can be really vital in helping you translate what the position is and get in front of folks, whether it's in these postings or during your interviews, to be really aware of what the roles are and how they may be different than some of the other postings that folks are seeing. Finalize and begin training your recruitment team, right? How are we going to do this? Swag or no swag? And this may be something that you say, gosh, swag. that's not something we're thinking about at all, or that's what we used to do when we were in person. But I would encourage folks to be fluid as we think about TPE in the future and TPE virtual right now. Swag can still be part of it, right? What are the ways in which you can be really creative about welcoming a candidate with with your Zoom backgrounds, or mailing swag if you have the budget or the capacity to do so, or saying, no, that's not something that we want to do. But is there a way in which you can really hype your school, hype the work that's being done through marketing, through specific tangible items, making a candidate feel welcome, making sure those experiences can still be done virtually, because they can. I know that. We saw that last year, but it's really important for employers to talk to each other about what that means and how you show up virtually. Creating and updating your interview questions, you know that. And then, right, the candidate experience you hope to create. It's an exciting time, and really thinking about how you want to welcome candidates in, and how you want to train your team to welcome candidates into the space, gearing up for TPE virtual. So those are some really quick things that I wanted to share with you as it relates to getting ready, right? Grounding. Here, really quickly, some upcoming educational events, things to think about. This is the first roundtable. There will be many more sessions. So keep an eye on your email for that. But otherwise, I'm going to close us out here with, these are the ways in which you can keep in touch with us. So if you have specific questions, or you're curious about something, or I can't answer something, and those that are on the call with me can't answer it because I have such good folks behind the scenes from TPE who can help, employers at TPE, right? Super important. You can email us, but engage with us, right? Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, all those good things. We'd really welcome that engagement, right? So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open it up for some discussion, questions, reactions from folks. And where are you in your search process, right? Let's start there.
Hi, my name is Teresa, she, her, hers. I'm from VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University. Sorry, let me not use acronyms. Currently, right now, we are still in processes for our entry-level hall director. So that's kind of where we're at now. So we haven't even started like our official recruitment of what we would do for now. But I think those kind of may overlap for our time being. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I'm so curious, right? We know that timelines are fluid. TPE is all the time now, right? There's a signature really key event and it's a compressed time. But folks that are in searches right now, like, what are you taking with you for TPE virtual based on your searches right now, right? So many of us are in them, and the traditional timeline has changed and adjusted, right? Job searching is all the time now, not necessarily during that spring and summer. Thanks, Teresa.
Yeah, we also just wrapped up our final hall director position and hoping for no more random openings. But yeah, so we haven't quite turned to planning for TPE yet, but this conversation and like the reminders of the recommendations of things to do around this time of year are helpful. I do have a question about the virtual interviews and kind of like how those, I mean, are they over Zoom? Is there a different platform that like TPE uses specifically where like employers and candidates are like sent into specific rooms? Those questions, I don't know if they're going to be answered in like later workshops, so I can hold tight, but I think that's my biggest question mark since we haven't done the virtual side is like, how do the interviews actually, how are they actually conducted?
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'll start, and if there's other additional information, happy to hear that from our TPE representative on the call. So Last year, employers were tasked with figuring out what platform worked well based on the campus that they're in, right? Using what they were using during their workday, right? Whether it was Teams or Zoom or whatever it may be. And I think that afforded some fluidity and some flexibility, right? Folks knew that they were really comfortable with one or multiple modalities of video conferencing kind of software, things like that. My understanding as of right now is that there has been exploration as it relates to a uniform platform to help both candidates and employers, but right now those decisions have not been finalized or formalized. And right now, I think the message to employers is that you would have some fluidity and flexibility to create your own, reoccurring Zoom link or things of that nature.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey friends, again, my name is Jami McKinnon. I use she, her pronouns. I work very similar with my colleagues in a place of, just finished wrapping up mid-year, very similar to my other colleagues said, hoping we don't have any more turnover for this next year. But I recently transitioned to this university, so I'm at the University of South Carolina. And so just trying to.
USC's on here.
Who? Oh,
I guess
hey.
so. Yeah, I'm the other USC.
California, and so I got excited. Never mind.
No, you're fine. I didn't even realize it when they said it earlier, so I apologize. Hey. But now just trying to, one, get my footing on making our timeline, figuring where we are, to understanding the university I'm at, what timeline or expectations are needed there. So that's kind of where we are at this point in time. Just a lot of figuring things out, a lot of plugging and playing and making some changes.
Yeah, absolutely. So folks are coming into the space, I think, in early stages, and that makes sense, right? So I am thankful for the candor, and I would be very surprised if I heard that folks were in a different place with their searches. But I know that every department, every school runs things really differently, right? There are some folks that say, like, we are not there yet. We're going to think about, we got to get to Thanksgiving, right? And then we're going to register, and then we'll figure it out. There are other schools, right, that are very, very focused and rigid and making sure that they have all these things kind of lined up, and that works for them, and that's a good thing. So I'm glad to hear that folks are wrapping up searches, and I too hope that doesn't create other vacancies, but then gives you a little bit of space to think about March and getting to that place for TPE virtual. I'm curious for folks, and we'll keep on the call for a little bit, but I also know that this may be some good information, and we don't want to unnecessarily prolong, right, given where folks are and the number of folks on the call. So I'd be curious for folks to talk to each other in the next sort of few minutes. What are some of the things that, based on the slides or based on the things that you have done previously, that you're hoping to bring forward? Like, are there thoughts about ways in which you can kind of uniformly use the process that you're in right now to apply to TPE virtual? Or are there things that you have some nervousness or gaps or barriers around?
I have a nervousness gap, but also a question for TPE as well. I don't perfect. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel if I don't have to. But one thing I know our team has talked about specifically is when it comes to like inclusion and just making sure the candidate feels as comfortable as possible. Does TPE have anything built in where there's a way for candidates and employers to understand or know the correct pronunciation for candidates' names and their pronouns up front? Because our team is trying to figure out a way to put that in there just so it does not create a barrier for the interviewer coming to the table, already in the midst of nerves and just being respectful of that person. So I don't know if TPE already had something like that in the works that was happening for the platform?
It's a really good question. My understanding is that there isn't anything built in for candidates right now. Spencer, please correct me if that is not the case. But I think it's good feedback. And I'm wondering if that's something that can be explored. Right now, I don't think there's a drop down or an option for candidates for both, right? For both pronunciation and pronouns. But it doesn't, that's not to suggest that it isn't something that shouldn't be considered or couldn't be built in, right? And I think that's a really interesting idea. And I'm nearly certain that that is not, the case now when candidates profile or things like that. But I do wonder, right, stating the obvious, when scheduling, if there's a mechanism, right, to build that in, whether it's on the buildup of the employer candidate side or school specific, right? I think that is certainly something that I would love to see it, and we can certainly take that back as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sally, are you in a place knowing that you just wrapped up, or you're in a process of wrapping up a search? Do you feel like for right now, the things that you've just done are going to be easily applied to TPE virtual, or are there things that you're having to sort of build out in a different way?
I think so. I think a lot of it can be transferable. I think we just have to identify, like in the past, we've done like a 30-minute first round and 30-minute second round at TPE in person before we did the on campuses. So I think we just need to decide if that's the same route we want to take. I do not think we'll be able to do like first rounds prior to TPE, just because that rubs up against our student leader searches for grads and RAs. But I think the biggest question for us as well is like, the final round interview, will we be inviting folks physically to campus as we have in years past, or will we maintain the virtual aspect? That's a big question mark, and I can't even presume to guess when I'll have the answer. It's like, we don't know what variants and what it'll look like when we come back next semester. So, I mean, we have the budget set aside for it. However, unsure if what that quote unquote on campus will look like. So that's a big question mark.
Yeah. I think that's being felt by a lot of folks. And specifically, right, I haven't dipped my toe in the functional area, but I could assume that it's residence life on the call. And there's certainly a sense of, well, these, from some employers, right, speak in broad terms. The position is in person. We want to see people, even if you have hybrid or flexibility, we want to see people, but candidates' comfortability and restrictions on travel and budget and public health, like all of that, right? And that's what I'm so curious to learn from employers, not on this call, but in another 6 months to a year, the folks that did singularly virtual searches, right? A candidate did not come to campus, what data can we glean from that, from folks who are in it right now or are about to onboard people wrapping up their searches? Were there things that were lost and missed, aside from kind of the obvious things of, being physically in front of someone or being physically on a campus? And if things weren't missed in such a radical way, I think that's interesting data, right? To think about when folks do a singularly virtual process and then arrive on campus, how do you prepare, either differently or not, knowing that maybe there'll be some virtual final rounds in the spring.
Yeah,
I hope. Okay. Well, I am so thankful for both of you being on the call. And if there are questions or other things, right, this is again the dip of the toe. This is the first of many. And I really really value and want employers to talk to each other, right? About what are the things that they're navigating? What are they thinking about? It's so helpful to get in spaces and be creative and learn what other institutions are doing. So hopeful that both of you can join for other calls throughout the winter and leading up to TPE, but otherwise, please let us know if you have any questions or if we can be helpful to you by emailing us. But otherwise, take good care. And November 1st is when TPE registration opens. You can play around with it on the website. Thanks again, everyone. Have a good afternoon. Take care.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.